Children are like sponges. They pick everything up naturally. If I had €1 for the number of times I'd heard this, well, okay, I wouldn't be rich exactly, but I would be able to go out for a nice meal at the very least. The children equals sponge trope is a myth that's perpetuated around the world by parents, teachers, and the general public. But what does it even mean? Keep watching to hear why this and other myths around English language teaching with young learners should be taken with a pinch of salt. Hi, my name is Michelle, and in this video I'm going to debunk 5 common myths in young learner ELT. As teachers, it's important that we examine our teaching beliefs from time to time and not let some of these myths seep into our practice. Let's try to make informed, evidence-based decisions that will help us to help our students learn English effectively. And we can start by dispelling a few of these common misconceptions about teaching young learners. Myth number 1, children are sponges. No, they're not. This theory comes from the fact that children learn from engaging with their environment. Young children learn by watching and imitating, and it's true that they learn in a more holistic sense rather than just being taught something explicitly. However, this doesn't mean that we can just pour language into a child and they will just soak it up like a sponge. If you put a child in front of a TV and only play English language shows all day, they're not going to miraculously come out speaking English. Children need to be actively involved in lessons and encouraged to experiment with language, and they need plenty of practice. It's true that when a child is immersed in an environment where a new language is spoken, they will pick it up if they're exposed to the language for long enough. But that means living in a country where that language is spoken or attending a school where that language is used all day. This level of exposure doesn't happen in most ELT classrooms, and therefore the students need explicit instruction and plenty of opportunities to play with and practice the language. Myth number 2, children can't focus for extended periods of time. Have plenty of activities up your sleeve and change activities every 5 minutes. I honestly think that this is one of the most damaging things that I've been told as a young learner teacher. It's unsurprising that most ELT teachers despise teaching kids if that is what they're doing. It's absolutely exhausting and unsustainable. If you're planning 10 different activities for a 60-minute lesson, you're going to burn out very quickly, and probably before the end of the lesson. 5 minutes is probably true if you're teaching 3-year-olds, but for primary, children can focus for much longer if they're interested in what they're doing. Rather than spending time trying to come up with as many different activity ideas as possible, spend that time planning activities that you know will engage your learners. And this doesn't necessarily mean playing games, and I'll come back to this again later in the video. Make sure that your activities are age appropriate, have the right level of challenge, and that get learners to do something practical with the language. When you find the right topic and activity, you may be surprised how long students can and want to carry on doing it. Myth number 3, colouring and crafts are a waste of time. Okay, so this depends on what you actually do with the colouring or craft. If you're just letting your students colour in a picture for 20 minutes, that probably is a big waste of time. But there are lots of ways we can use crafts and art activities to help develop students' language skills. My friend Fiona at Kids Club English has lots of articles and resources on this very subject, so go and check out her website right after you finish watching this video. You'll find the link in the description. Crafts and colouring activities can provide a context for language and a visual reminder of the target language. While they are making it, you can ask students questions and have them talk about what they're doing, and they have something tangible that they can take home and show their family whilst also using the language they've learnt. Finally, these types of activities provide students with necessary processing time. When we introduce new language, our brains need time to process it. When we give students a picture to colour or something to draw, we're giving them the chance to form connections between the language and the concepts behind it in their brains. Myth number 4, don't smile until Christmas. That old chestnut. This one comes from the traditional classroom and has its basis in Victorian style teaching, where the teacher must be respected and discipline is a key element. The idea is that you should maintain strict rules for the first few weeks of term in order to avoid classroom management problems. However, unless you want your students to actively hate English and comply to your demands through fear, is probably not the best way to go about things. Instead, we should aim to create a positive classroom environment where students feel that they belong and they feel safe, and not smiling isn't going to help you get there. We need to build positive relationships and foster a supportive classroom. We need to be someone that our students can trust. If we want them to share struggles with us, we need to be open and, put simply, kind. And not being cruel to be kind. That's another terrible cliche. Kindness is often underrated in the ELT classroom, but it's probably the most fundamental quality a teacher can have, along with empathy. Now, I'm not saying that your classroom should be a free-for-all. You need to set expectations and rules and have consequences for not meeting them. But you can do so from a place of understanding and respect for your students. Myth number 5, teaching English to young learners is all fun and games. How you go about teaching your primary learners is up to you. It's a personal choice. However, going back to my earlier point about burnout, I don't imagine that you'll last very long if all you do is play games and sing and dance to ELT songs. Games have their place, but I don't think anyone expects a lesson full of them. In fact, I'm pretty sure that your students' parents and caregivers have more demands than that their precious offspring is having fun, especially if they're paying for expensive lessons. While after-school classes shouldn't be a repetition of what happens in their English lessons at school, they should still have learning outcomes. These can be language objectives, such as vocabulary and structures, but can also include other life skills. Ideally, a lesson will have a variety of different activity types, including some input, which could be text or video or the presentation of new language, and some output, which could be oral practice, written work, or puzzles and games. But if you do use games, try to ensure that they have a purpose. What are students learning or practicing with the game? Again, this could be language skills or other skills like communication and social skills. So there you have it, 5 ELT young learner myths busted. But before I go, I do want to mention inquiry-based learning. I haven't mentioned it in any of my recent videos, so I feel like it's a bit overdue. So how does it fit in with these 5 myths? Well, first of all, it provides learners with exposure to authentic language through the materials they use to research the topic. Learners are actively involved from the start, and while they aren't sponges, you can ensure that they get plenty of authentic practice during the inquiry project. You can also introduce language that the students themselves want to learn, making it more memorable and similar to an immersion experience. Secondly, it provides students with meaningful activities that are likely to engage them for longer periods of time. Students need to find out real information and then create a product to showcase their learning. This requires more extended focus, but it's also something that they can get really passionate about. While crafts don't typically form part of an inquiry, students will use their design skills in the product that they create. And as they make this, they'll be using lots of functional language as well as reviewing the target language as they make decisions about what to include. And finally, the inquiry classroom is a place where serious learning takes place in a collaborative and welcoming atmosphere. Students learn to respect each other's differences and they develop meaningful relationships with each other and with you. Thank you for watching and let me know which myth you've heard the most. Happy inquiring!